Today I'm going to show you the 8 definitive signs that a man is missing you during a no contact rule. Now, if you aren't familiar with what the no contact rule is defined as, it's essentially this period of time where you're cutting off all conceivable communication with someone after a breakup. Now, the intent of the tactic should not be used to make an ex miss you, but should be used to rebuild your own life so that you can begin to outgrow your ex. Now, by doing this, the no contact rule can actually have that added benefit of making an ex miss you. Now, generally speaking, the no contact rule is going to last anywhere between 21 to 45 days. Of course, many of our clients are left wondering how they can tell if it's even working on their exes. And what's interesting about this is our studies have shown that most exes actually won't even reach out to you during the no contact rule. Let's see, I think in 2020, I did a poll in our private Facebook support group. We have close to 7,000 people. And we found that around 60% of the people who we asked, hey, have you done a no contact rule? And how often has your ex reached out to you? 60% said their ex never reached out to them at all. They were the ones that after the no contact rule was complete, they were the ones that had to reach out to their ex. So it becomes difficult to determine if the no contact rule is working. But that's what this video or podcast episode is really going to be doing. We're going to be looking at the major signs that your ex misses you during a no contact rule. Now, I've listed these signs in an order that I feel is most likely to occur. In other words, sign number 1 is probably going to occur before sign number 8. In all, there are, as you probably guessed, 8 specific signs. So let's get started. Sign number 1. He tries to get information about you from your sphere of influence. So, time to educate you a bit on our terminology. So, the sphere of influence is one of the most underrated aspects of the entire breakup process. Essentially, the sphere of influence are the people who a human surrounds themselves with, whose opinions that they care about. So these are going to be obviously intimate relationships, close relationships, casual relationships, and distant acquaintances. What you'll notice among the 4 hierarchy there is you're a lot more likely to trust the opinions of people who you have intimate relationships or close relationships with as opposed to distant acquaintances. Now, generally, the most common candidates for a sphere of influence are friends and family, yet we notice something really fascinating happening in our clients' exes after a breakup. As stated above, we've found that most exes won't reach out during a no contact rule. That doesn't mean the no contact rule isn't effective. It says more about the ex-boyfriend's state of mind more than anything else. So instead, what we often see happen with ex-boyfriends is they're doing a lot of spying on you via your sphere of influence. And this can happen a number of ways. They'll reach out to mutual friends to check up on you. They'll reach out and have mutual friends pass on messages to you. You get the idea, stuff like that. This is, in fact, is actually the most common sign that we see after a breakup and can be a signal that they're missing you during the no contact rule. Sign number 2 is he's trying to prove he's over you on social media. Notice how many of the other articles or videos covering this topic cover the more direct ways of communication during no contact. I'm actually a bit resistant to that because in the real world, that's not what we're seeing. My colleague and head coach, Anna, wrote this really great piece a few weeks ago on the major differences in how women and men handle breakups. Here's what she had to say. So essentially, she's arguing that the main story between men and women, boy and girl meeting and falling in love should go a little something like this. Boy and girl meet. Boy tells girl he loves her. There's no one else but her. But then at some point, the boy says, it's not you, it's me, let's be friends. The boy changes his Facebook status to single and fills his Instagram feed with photos of himself partying with never-before-seen women. The girl, meanwhile, falls apart and tells her friends how unfair it is that he's already over the relationship while she's busy analyzing every minuscule thing that she might have done wrong for months, maybe even years. But the boy falls apart too. He just doesn't show or tell anyone. It sucks for both the boy and girl, just in different ways. And it probably sucks even more for him, but he'll never tell you because he's not allowed to. That societal pressure that she mentions about men not being allowed to show that they are broken or missing an ex or partner is huge to understanding if an ex will even miss you during no contact. The truth is that often the most common signs we've seen during the no contact rule are passive types of communication, whether that's engaging in sign number 1 sphere of influence shenanigans or engaging in the signs shenanigans by trying to put on a front via social media. So what does that actually look like? Well, here's my general rule of thumb. If you are looking at your ex's social media profile and they are really trying hard to show that they are over the breakup, then that's usually a sign that they aren't over the breakup. Yes, I'm talking about them posting sappy love songs, inspiring posts about how love is overrated, jealousy ploys, going out way too much. As my other colleague, Dr. Ramsey, says, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. So let's move on to sign number 3.
Real quick, I want to say that if you're new to this YouTube channel or you're trying to figure out what you should be doing to get your ex back and you're trying to learn if you even have a chance in your specific circumstance, probably the smartest thing for you to do is actually stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, or take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz that can be found at exboyfriendrecovery.com. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, taking that free quiz is super easy to do. All you have to simply do is look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can fill it out and get an easy answer on what you should be doing going forward and overall what your chances look like in your specific situation. All right, so let's get you back to the video.
Sign number 3 is he reaches out in a neutral way, obviously. So really signs number 3 and 4 that I'm going to cover here are linked, so bear that in mind as you're listening. So technically speaking, there's a 60% chance that after a breakup, your ex won't reach out to you during a no contact rule. However, that also means there's a 40% chance that they will reach out to you. Where many of my peers go wrong, in my opinion, is they propagate this false narrative and create unrealistic expectations for their readers or watchers. It seems obvious, right? If a guy misses you during no contact, then for sure he's going to reach out and tell you that he misses you. I will admit I've seen it happen, but it usually doesn't happen at first. Normally, they just want to reach out to you with a feeler text. And the most common one is, hey, or what's up, or how are you doing? You are in the middle of the no contact rule, so of course you ignore it. And that's when sign number 4 comes into play. And sign number 4 is his attitude then shifts to being angry. So after realizing that you are making a conscious effort to ignore him, he grows angry and you'll get a response like this. So you're just ignoring me now? You just forget everything? Don't you even want to be friends with me? Okay, then have it your way. Something along those lines. There's a lot going on here, so allow me to unpack. Firstly, you need to understand that the no contact rule really revolves around the psychology of reactance. And reactance is this psychological principle that says if you take a human being's freedom away, then they're likely to react in a way to try to take that freedom back. Now, the no contact rule technically is about taking a man's freedom of talking to you away. And what you see with an angry response from them is reactance rearing its ugly head. But there's more to it than that. So Coach Anna and I did a video called What to Do If Your Ex is Mad at You. And we really discussed at length the psychology behind anger and breakups. And she said something that really resonated with me. And I'm not the only one. Actually, the top YouTube comment on that video calls it out too. And the person basically said, if we look at situations where someone else is wrong and we feel correct, we distract ourselves from feeling pain. That's why so many exes feel angry and judgmental. And to quote the science fiction novel Dune, really weird analogy, but bear with me, how often is it that the angry man rages denial of what his inner self is telling him? The truth is that for many, being left alone is the scariest thing in the world because you're forced with all the shortcomings you have and exhibited in the relationship that you have to deal with yourself. And the no contact rule exacerbates that. And so often we find that exes are getting angry for being ignored and are lashing out because it's easier to blame you than turning the blame inward towards themselves. And then we have sign number 5. Sign number 5 is all about the topics he reaches out to you with. Follow the JBN method. So almost always a guy is going to reach out to you neutrally during the no contact rule at first. Sometimes that neutrality will turn to scorn, as I just covered. However, sometimes it follows a different pattern. JBN, jealousy, bragging, nostalgia. If your ex brings up either of these things, it's a good bet they're missing you. though they may not be willing to admit it to themselves yet. So what do these look like? Well, let's explore jealousy. This one is more insecurity speaking more than anything else. But usually it's calling attention to something that you did on social media. They'll sometimes create their own narrative about how while you were out with your friends in this one post you posted, you potentially met someone else. Stuff like that can be very common. Bragging. Usually they'll send a picture of some achievement. There's an element of look what you're missing out on by not being with me. Also, it harkens back to sign number 2 with them trying to prove that they are over you. And then nostalgia. This usually happens towards the end of no contact, and it seemingly can occur out of nowhere. In fact, Dr. Ramsey brought this up in a video I did with him. Basically, your ex literally reaches out to you, bringing up some super emotional memory from the past, seemingly out of nowhere. So if any of these things happen during the no contact rule, even while you're ignoring them, good sign. Sign number 6 is you notice a trend about when the reach out attempts are happening. This is purely a timing element that I want you to keep your eyes peeled out for. If your ex is reaching out to you consistently during the no contact rule at a time that they'd likely be by themselves, it gives some interesting insight into their state of mind. Remember above with the anger sign, I said that sometimes the scariest thing for a person is to be left alone with themselves. This is kind of a bit of that. So pay attention to the timing of the reach outs. If you're noticing that consistently your ex or a guy is reaching out to you a lot during the no contact rule in the middle of the night when they're likely to be alone, that's probably because they're being left with their own thoughts, and this is their way of trying to handle it. Then, of course, we have sign number 7. He writes a letter and sends it to you. Now, Coach Anna and I have made our opinions very clear on you sending letters to an ex after a breakup. But we have seen plenty of letters received by our clients during a no contact period. And usually it's some closure-based thing, but Coach Anna has kind of an interesting technique to help you deciphering the intent of the letter. Now, it's important to pay attention to how often they write in the first person. I, me, my. Compare that to how often they mention you. Generally speaking, if the entire letter is written in a way that sort of makes them feel better, they're still hurt deeply by the breakup. They're still hung up on you. They're still bothered by it. And then there's sign number 8. They purposely try to see you in person. Now, usually we have the opposite problem with our clients, meaning that they like to break no contact to see their exes early. This is the opposite of that. If your ex-boyfriend is manufacturing ways to see you in person and purposely runs into you, then it's a good sign that they are missing you in some way, shape, or form. For many, it can be extremely difficult to have such a dramatic change in routine that comes with the breakup. So throughout our relationships, we got used to our routines. And then when the breakup suddenly happens, you remove any opportunity for them to phase out in a way that feels more natural. Such is the power of no contact. Of course, one of the things that sets our program apart is that we don't really want you focused on your ex or a guy at all during no contact. We want you focused on you. And that is where I think the best place to end this video is. Because the truth is, just because an ex or a guy exhibits signs of missing you does not necessarily mean they're going to come on their hands and knees and beg for you back. The truth is, most exes will miss you or have this nostalgia hit that you see with sign number 5. That JBN nostalgia method. But it gives you kind of a foundation to build towards. And what you need to understand is a lot of times you're dealing with an avoidant. An avoidant likes to push that stuff very deep down so they're not having to think about it. And so sometimes when you're giving them space to think for themselves, that begins to bubble to the surface. And usually when it bubbles to the surface, that's when they're likely to reach out and let you know they miss you.